Chapter 004 Void Trial, Abyss. Suyi directly opened his territory status panel. Name, unnamed. Level, 1. Area, 1,000 meters in diameter. Buildings, Shabby Lord's Cabin. Barracks, Fallen Heaven Sanctuary, Divine. Warehouse, 100 square meters, none. Upgrade, Wood X100, Stone X100, Origin Crystal X10. It really is completely barren. Suyi looked at his territory status panel. After some thought, he named it after his talent, Supreme Heaven. Then, Suyi opened his personal status panel. Name, Suyi. Level, Black Iron 1 star. Talent, Supreme Sovereign. Unique talent grades, Common, Excellent, Elite, Overlord, King, Mythical, Unique. Territory, Supreme Heaven. Personal space 10 slots 90 gold coins. Lord authority, Dominion, Decomposition. P.S. A completely unremarkable novice lord. Suyi looked at his status panel, not surprised in the slightest. Personal space was a lord's private storage, while the territory warehouse belonged to the territory itself. The two were not the same thing. Lord authority was an ability shared by every lord, giving them absolute dominion over their territory. Simply put, they could shape their territory into whatever they desired. Decomposition was a special authority belonging to the lord used to decompose the corpses of attacking monsters. Of course, this authority could also be granted to the hero units and regular units under the lord's command. As for whether to share it or not, that was entirely up to the lord. Suyi looked at Lilith. As the first hero unit under his command, his early development would rely entirely on her. It was worth noting here. A lord's very first recruitment was guaranteed to yield a hero unit. This was considered a benefit and support granted to novice lords by the Eternal Worlds Will, much like how recruitment during the novice period only cost 1 gold coin. These were all hidden, unlisted novice buffs. Open black lens bracket ding. Detected that the lord has recruited troops. Would you like to start the void trial? Close black lens bracket. The system prompt rang out. Suyi looked at Lilith and the others. The void trial was the primary channel for novice lords to acquire resources, but of course, it was also their greatest source of danger. It could be taken once a day, and when to start it was entirely up to the lord. However, it was limited to once a day at most. It was also fine if one chose not to start the void trial. But that would mean losing a day's worth of resource acquisition opportunities. It depended entirely on the lord themselves, with no coercion involved. Lilith, are you all ready for battle? Suyi asked, looking at Lilith and the others. Lord God Emperor, this servant has long been prepared, Lilith said with a smile as she looked at Suyi. Very well. System, start the void trial, Suyi said in a deep voice. Open black lens bracket ding, please select a difficulty level. The higher the difficulty, the more abundant the resources. Please choose carefully, common, hard, nightmare, purgatory, abyss, close black lens bracket. Suyi looked at the 5 difficulty options before him. The higher the difficulty, the richer the resources. Was there even a choice? He wasn't one of those second-generation lords who had the support of high-tier lords. The only thing he could do was rapidly complete his most primitive accumulation within the 30 days of the novice period. At the very least, he had to build a solid foundation. Many things could be easily obtained during the novice period, but once it passed, it would become extremely difficult. The key lay in whether a novice lord had the courage and strength. Abyss. Suyi chose the abyss difficulty while looking at Lilith and the others. It wasn't as if no one had ever cleared the abyss difficulty before. Since Lilith and the others were god-tier troops, there was no reason to choose any other difficulty. Open black lens bracket ding, void trial initiated. Difficulty, Abyss. Battle will begin in 30 seconds. Please prepare for battle, Lord. Close black lens bracket. The sky above Suyi's territory turned blood red, and the atmosphere became oppressive. Lilith, I'll have to trouble you all, Suyi said earnestly to Lilith. Please rest assured, Lord. Just leave it to us, Lilith said, a hint of blood red flashing in her eyes as the giant war scythe materialized in her hand. The other original sin-fallen angels also conjured their own divine weapons. The 30 seconds of preparation time quietly slipped away. The space-time around Suyi's territory rippled, and hideous imps began to emerge one after another. These imps were everywhere, surrounding them from all directions. Suyi checked their attributes. Name, Abyss Imp. Tier 3. Level, Black Iron 5-star to 8-star. P.S. Cannon fodder of the abyssal world and the lowest class of demons. However, to novice lords, they are a nightmare. Suyi looked at the imps closing in from all directions. Is this the abyss difficulty? They range from Black Iron 5-star to Black Iron 8-star, and their strength is at Tier 3 troops. This is ridiculous. The tier of a novice lord's troops could be high or low, but their level always started at Black Iron 1-star. Within each tier, there were 9 minor levels. They really cranked up the difficulty, Suyi muttered, looking at those imps, then turned his gaze toward Lilith and the others with anticipation. According to existing data, the biggest gap between troops was not level, but tier. Tier was an innate advantage, whereas level could be made up for later. A hint of madness flashed in Lilith's beautiful eyes. Black flames erupted from the giant side in her hand as she swung it. A massive, crescent-shaped slash burst forth instantly. Wherever it passed, the imps were pulverized, turning into the purest origin energy to be absorbed by Lilith. This was how troops leveled up. The other original sin-fallen angels also began to take action. The imps, which seemed menacing and vast in number, were harvested like weeds before Lilith and the others. Is this the power of God-tier troops? I absolutely love it, Suyi thought as he watched Lilith and the others perform. They hadn't even used any skills, reaping their enemies purely with their weapons and physical attributes. The sheer gap in power was unimaginable. It seems I underestimated God-tier troops. Or rather, no novice lord in this world has probably ever obtained God-tier troops before, Suyi couldn't help but chuckle. The duration of the void trial increased with the difficulty. Common difficulty only had 1 wave, hard had 5, and nightmare had 10 waves of enemies. Starting from purgatory, the difficulty ramped up significantly. It was no longer a set number of waves, but a continuous stream of enemies lasting for half an hour. The abyss difficulty, on the other hand, featured an endless stream of enemies that lasted for a full hour. The sheer difficulty of this could easily be imagined. This data was public knowledge, and people had cleared the abyss difficulty before.
However, they would only attempt it during the last 10 or even 5 days of their novice period. After all, they would have accumulated resources for over 20 days by then before daring to try the abyss difficulty, using it to complete their final wave of accumulation during the novice period. But as for starting with the abyss difficulty on the very first day, there was no one other than Suyi. Everyone else would choose to play it safe, focusing on development first and considering it later. Suyi sat cross-legged on the ground and opened the system interface. There were 5 modules on it: chat, livestream, trade, private message, and system log. A bizarre scene unfolded in Suyi's territory. On one side, 10 goddess-tier existences were engaged in a relentless slaughter, leaving severed limbs and blood everywhere. On the other side, everything was calm, peaceful, and perfectly relaxed.